Hello. Today I want to discuss why do you need this static mesh tracing plugin of mine? Because people may be confused. In Engine there is already collision detection, so why not use the built-in one and resort to any other solutions? Let me discuss at the beginning the object that is basically the collision detection in Unreal is handled separately for two classes of objects. The first one are objects that move with sweep and are sweep enabled, and the ones that are not. So let me give you an example of object that is typically moving with sweeping, and this would be a projectile. So sweeping means that object is not teleporting between positions, but it is moving in continuous fashion. But this is possible only for root components. Okay, here is a projectile, and it is just a simple sphere, and it has a root component that is the sphere. And when I move it, for example, here by add local offset, you see I have the sweep flag enabled. If you would like to move it with projectile movement instead, then here it is the same thing. There is sweep collision, and you can enable it. And then this is a this root component is going to be swept, and the collision will work perfectly. It will, depending on your setup, it will trigger overlap. Overlap can trigger for both classes of objects, for swept ones and the ones that teleport. And depending on which one, this from sweep flag is indicating this. So in our case, this from sweep will be true, and because it is true, this sweep result will be set. So you will this is just hit result. So you will know the location, the impact point of collision, and so on and so forth. However, if this would be from non-sweeping movement, then from sweep is false, and you know nothing except the fact that collision happened. You don't know the impact location, you don't know the normal, you know nothing. And when it comes to on-component hit, this is never triggering for non-sweeping objects. So note that there is no from sweep flag here. This is because, as I said, it's only for sweeping ones. So in case of this projectile, and when object root component is swept, you have perfect collision detection. But great amount of objects do not have it. So cannot be root components basically, right? So for example, here I have some examples. So what do we have here? All of those. Here I have a monster that has a collider attached to his hand. Here I have a swordsman, and here I have some trap. And all of those objects that are colliding here are non-root components, because they are attached here to a hand, here also, and here for some kind of a hinge. So they cannot swap. So because they cannot sweep, they will never trigger on hit. So we are forced to work only with overlaps. So when the overlap happened, I am printing a message, and it is okay. And one more remark: when it comes to overlap, they also will never give you sweep result, right? This from sweep flag will be always false, so you will only know that the collision happened. You will not have any detailed information about the collision. But it seems to be working, right? The overlaps are triggered quite reliably. But note that I have 120 FPS here. If I am gonna limit this, let's go 60, I think it will still work. Yeah, it is still quite nice. Let's go 45. And as you can see now, This is still enough for this X because it's moving slowly, but the rest stopped to work. Let's go 52, and now this gargoyle is working, but the swordsman is not. It has the fastest animation. So this is basically collision detection for non-root components. It is unreliable, it is animation dependent, and it is frame rate dependent, and it's a pain, it's a struggle. So this is why I've created this melee tracing plugin of mine to have a reliable collision detection for non-root components. So this component basically gives you static melee weapon component. And the static melee weapon component is just a subclass of static mesh, and it has all this functionality of regular static mesh. And actually, in all of those three examples, here for the sword, here for the collider, and here for the axe, I've used it. But I've used this built-in default collision, which is there for static meshes. If we were instead to use my collision detection, it is in melee weapon damage system tab, and we will uncheck disable collider. So now when I've enabled my plugin, you can see that the collision is triggered always. I am printing debug shapes when the collision happens, and you always get full collision info. Whole hit result is there, so you know all the details of the collision. Right now it is 52 FPS. Let's go lower, let's go 45. It is still working. Let's go 30. It is still working. Let's go even 20, and it will still work. Okay, so this is the end. So my plugin will help you to for reliable collision detection for non-root components. I hope this clears some confusion. For now, that's all. Thank you for attention. See you later.